The Church of Satan does not, as an organization, endorse a specific political ideology, party, or politician. To demand otherwise wouldn't really make any sense in Satanism. I'll be explaining that and responding to some listener mail too today on Satansplain.
Well, it's not Satan worship, it's Satanism. It's embracing the life-enriching things which have traditionally been given the devil's name. Pride, lust, earthly success, rational self-interest, atheism, humor, nonconformity, science, a passion for living, being selective about whom we love. We don't see these as shameful sins, but empowering ideals. And we also recognize the psychological power and fun of symbolism and aesthetics, so we utilize Satan as mythology's most fitting mascot for what we're about.
Satansplain, Satanic Talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. The show is available for streaming on the official website, Satansplain.com. You can also find us on YouTube, Spotify, Amazon, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and other places as well. Let's jump into the show. If you have spent any time on Twitter or maybe any other social media for that matter, you may have noticed that there are questions about Satanism that come up again and again and again. Misconceptions that come up and need to be corrected again and again and again. Sometimes we'll point a person to the Church of Satan website, maybe to the comprehensive FAQ that we have there, or to one of our books to answer these questions again and again and again. A representative of the Church of Satan may even write a whole essay to address the issue. I've written a few of those myself. Like I said in Satansplain episode number 1, Satanism is a RTFM religion. Now, I have seen many people who, to their credit, will take the link you send them, read what is there, and say, "Oh, okay, I get it now. Thank you." To which I say, "You're very welcome. Happy to help." Then there are the people who won't read what they're given and just keep making fools of themselves. Maybe they think that it doesn't matter if their argument is bad or if they don't know anything about the subject they're trying to debate, so long as they get the last word in. Well, in any case, I'm going to read you an essay that I find myself posting a lot as a reply to people. This is the Church of Satan's Policy on Politics essay by the High Priest himself, Peter H. Gilmore. You can find this on churchofsatan.com. I talked a little bit about this topic of politics and Satanism in the previous episode of Satansplain, but I'd like to just read this essay in full here. After I read this, we'll take a short break, and then I'll read you some of the listener mail and listener comments I've received since launching Satansplain a couple of weeks ago. The Church of Satan's Policy on Politics. What constitutes the Church of Satan's stance on any number of political issues is a topic often broached by students working on papers, journalists of varying stripes and intelligence, and other assorted researchers, trolls, or people with some sort of axe to grind. Here is what we consider to be the briefest answer. And here is a paragraph quote from another essay by Magus Peter H. Gilmore called A Map for the Misdirected. As has been said many times before, one's politics are up to each individual member, and most of our members are political pragmatists. They support political candidates and movements whose goals reflect their own practical needs and desires. Our members span an amazing political spectrum, which includes, but is not limited to, libertarians, liberals, conservatives, Republicans, Democrats, Reform Party members, independents, capitalists, socialists, communists, Stalinists, Leninists, Trotskyites, Maoists, Zionists, monarchs, fascists, anarchists, and just about anything else you could possibly imagine. It is up to each member to apply Satanism and determine what political means will reach his or her ends, and they are each solely responsible for this decision. Freedom and responsibility must be a novel concept for those who aren't Satanists. We take it in stride. Members who demand conformity from other members to their particular political fetish are welcome to depart. And now the essay continues. To elaborate for those who have some political ideal which they wish the Church of Satan to tout for them, the Church of Satan does not have an official political position. Note that individual members frequently do have political positions. If Satanists wish to make their own political viewpoints known, Then they present their concepts and are prepared to back them up with references and reason in whatever forum being used for this display. If our members decide to debate or dispute each other's positions, we caution them to take the time to do so in a respectful manner. Remember our primary house rule. And here in the essay, the words house rule is linked to another essay, which, just to quickly sum it up, talks about the Church of Satan being a mutual admiration society. Don't air your dirty laundry about other members in public. You don't have to get along with everybody, but members you don't get along with, just don't associate with them, Just ignore them, block them on social media if you have to, and get on with your life. The Church of Satan is not going to demand that members conform to any particular point of view, nor should our members expect the Church of Satan to assist them in forcing others to assent to their own positions. If you seek out Satanists in their online or offline haunts, you will encounter individuals who assert positions that span the political spectrum. This includes our members from countries all over the world, each with their own political diversity, which might surprise those who have not done their research. For a Satanist to expect, much less demand, consensus on any given issue beyond basic advocacy of individual liberty within local laws is an enterprise which is probably as masochistic as it is insane. So, it is wise to always keep in mind that, as we've said before, the Church of Satan is a loosely knit cabal of individuals whose political opinions may and do vary. Those members who wish to involve themselves in politics do so in accord with the political and social ethos they individually uphold. The Church of Satan itself is not a political organization and doesn't operate as such. There is no requirement that members must involve themselves in any form of political activity whatsoever. I am going to repeat those last two sentences of this essay. The Church of Satan itself is not a political organization and doesn't operate as such. There is no requirement that members must involve themselves in any form of political activity whatsoever. Continuing. Some naive idealists seem to think that the Church of Satan as an organization risks irrelevancy if it does not become an advocate of certain political positions, usually their own pet issues which are assumed must be shared by other Satanists. This fear is based upon the assumption that the Church of Satan needs to change the world or risk fading into obscurity. Satanism is a deep structure of practical, realizable ideas, and most of us find the mantra that, quote, political action is required to justify your existence is just nonsense. The entire point of Satanism is that the Satanist does not have to change or improve reality, or make the world better, or attract attention from others by struggling to correct what one or others perceive to be the world's wrongs. The fundamental point of Satanism is that the Satanist can control his own world without having to change anyone else's first. This is essentially what choosing yourself as your own God is all about. If there were only one copy of the Satanic Bible in existence, the person who read it and understood it would benefit just as well. There is no need for some collective action or group behavior. The primacy of the individual is assumed throughout Satanic doctrine. It follows then most emphatically that we are not martyrs. We Satanists do not exist to serve any political agenda. The emotional drive to change the world is a common stage of early adult development, typically beginning around age 16 and lasting until around age 24. Usually individuals who become aware as how the world actually functions, rather than being lost in a fantasy wherein they will be some sort of savior figure, come to realize that idealism, such as changing the world, is less important than the principle of getting what you want for yourself. That latter position should be an obvious development, particularly for Satanists, since we don't hide our understanding that Satanists tend to be lone wolves and not herd animals. Because Satanism is intended to respect reality as it is, and not as anyone thinks it should be, it usually does not take long for a truly aware Satanist to set aside politics in favor of direct personal efforts for selfish goals. Overall, politics simply tends to be viewed by most Satanists as interesting, worthy of attention for upcoming changes, and even fun to play with when appropriate. However, it is never a cause that we must live for. We ourselves, our lives, and our love of life are the only causes that we endorse without hesitation. Everything else is pretty much up for debate. Satanism itself is not a cause, rather it is a tool for advancing ourselves and those people and things which we deem to be of merit. Hence, the Church of Satan first endorses autonomy for the individual as a primary, allowing the individual to then decide for himself what political viewpoints are most agreeable to him. If an individual decides that he attains pleasure through participation in political advocacy movements and organizations, he should realize that it is his own pleasure in participation that is the goal and the satanic aspect of his actions, not necessarily the political agenda he is working to achieve. Thus, the Church of Satan will not fade because we do not need to win any external approval to exist. We as an organization only need to continue, as we have for 5 decades, to offer the tools through which our members may see through the conceptual traps that enslave the masses.
You are listening to Satansplain, real satanic talk with Church of Satan Magister Bill M. For questions, comments, and correspondence, send an email to bill@satansplain.com.
We live in a society where people will have a crucifix and a GPS on the same dashboard. And you want to explain to me how we're progressing as a society? Fucking retards. Retards with toys. That's like if your fucking neurosurgeon came into the OR wearing Hong Kong Phooey pajamas. and thought Hong Kong Phooey was real.
This is Bill M., and that little bit of comedic blasphemy was brought to you by The Devil's Mischief, comedy that's not made for the masses. Listen to the show The Devil's Mischief on RadioFreeSatan.com.
Magister Bill M. here with Satansplain. As I've been mentioning in every episode, you can email me, bill@satansplain.com. That is the email address. I've been reading and replying to people, aside from trolls and spammers. I've also been replying to some of the questions or comments that have come to my way through Twitter or through a shared post on Facebook or whatever. And I'd like to now just take some of those questions that have come my way. I've already replied directly to these people, but some of the questions and comments I thought were things that I think other listeners may be wondering about too, so I'm going to read some of these. Dylan writes, "Hello, Magister Bill. My name is Dylan, and I genuinely follow the Satanic Bible and consider myself a Satanist. I had a question regarding to paying for a registered membership. I know it could take some time to get my card in the mail and whatnot. I didn't know if there's a way, like if you've waited a long time, if they will get back to you, what's going on. I am wanting to send papers off for my membership, but I'm nervous that it may take a really long time, or that I won't hear back and be ignorant or whether or not I get in." So, Dylan, what I always tell people who have applied for membership in the Church of Satan is that if you've sent in your application, give it at least, I'd say, a few months. Be patient. Don't message the Church of Satan 3 days after you mail it and say, "Oh, did you get my letter? Did you get my letter? Did you get my letter?" Just, wait it out. Now, if it's been several months and you haven't heard anything, then yeah, definitely drop a line. There is always a chance that things get lost in the mail or whatever. One thing I will point out, though, is that registered membership takes far shorter of a time than active membership. I know when some people join the Church of Satan, they decide to not only get a registered membership, but also send in the application for active membership at the same time. You can still do that, but another option is to just pay for registered membership and then later decide, if you want to apply for active membership. This is all explained on the Church of Satan website, churchofsatan.com, but there is no shame with being just a registered member, and that's what I did myself. I joined first just as a registered member, and I remained a registered member until several years later when I found myself being pretty active as a Church of Satan member anyway. By that time, I had launched my first podcast, The Devil's Mischief. I was writing articles for Satanism zines. I was actively on Satanism forums like Letters of the Devil. I was meeting up with other Church of Satan members in person, doing rituals and social events and all that stuff. So it was at that point that I said to myself, well, I'm doing all these things, I guess I may as well apply for active membership in the Church of Satan. Now that's just my situation. That may or may not be your situation. But that was mine, and I'm just bringing up the point that going with just plain registered membership is still an option. You can always apply for active later on. Speaking of joining the Church of Satan, I do want to mention something important. If you choose to join the Church of Satan, the only way you should be doing that is by contacting the Church of Satan through the official website itself, churchofsatan.com, or through the postal mail at the actual postal address, which is also listed on churchofsatan.com, or some other direct contact through an official source. The reason I mention this is that I have seen some people lately who have been contacted by scammers, people who message them on Facebook or some other social media app, and they say, hey, if you'd like to join the Church of Satan, give your money to me. I'll take care of it for you. Look, I'm really from the Church of Satan. Here's my membership card. And they'll show a photo of some other card that they found a picture of online, and they downloaded it for themselves, and they're pretending to be that person. And this is fraud, plain and simple. Now, I know some of you may think, well, people stupid enough to fall for a scam like that deserve to have their money taken away. Well, I still don't condone people fraudulently pretending to be the Church of Satan. So, just an important thing to mention, the Church of Satan will not contact you directly to ask you for money. Or another thing these scammers do is claim that for a little extra money you can get access to these special relics or secret writings. We don't have that. Satanism doesn't work like that. The Church of Satan doesn't work like that. We are not an initiatory organization. When I became a magister of the Church of Satan, there wasn't some secret scrolls of spooky occult writings that I got to read that non-magisters don't. I didn't pay any extra money to become a magister. What happened was I got a letter in the mail from the Church of Satan saying, congrats, Bill, we promoted you from priest to magister. Here's a new membership card with your new title on it. Here's a certificate you can frame and hang on the wall, or even put on the refrigerator if you prefer. No magnets included. Sorry. But seriously, that was like basically it. If somebody messages you and says they're from the Church of Satan and are asking you for money, just report and block that person. I have another email here. Dan says, hey, Bill, I've always been a bit confused on how Satanists view curses. As atheists with unbelief in the supernatural, since we don't believe in any deities, are we to believe it's simply the law of attraction for selfish reasons? Dan, thanks for your question. This is a big topic. I mean, as I've been pointing out for years, the topic of magic and ritual, it takes up 2/3 of the pages of the Satanic Bible, not to mention the entirety of the book's follow-up, the Satanic Rituals. So it's not something I can Satansplain right now, but it will most certainly be a topic I'll cover in future episodes of Satansplain. I don't know when exactly I'll get around to it, but in the meantime, I pointed Dan to 2 recordings where I do talk about it in great detail. If you search YouTube for Greater Magic Discussion with Magister Bill M., you should be able to find 2 discussions. These are ones I did for Text the Demented Ones show. One is from 2016, and part 2 was recorded 4 years later in 2020. And those discussions I did are very long, but like I said, very thorough. And something I do specifically address is how the concept of magic, as defined in the Satanic Bible, fits into Satanism's materialistic worldview. So again, I will most certainly be talking about the topic eventually here on Satansplain, but in the meantime, those 2 clips will tell you most of what I may be saying when I get around to it anyway. So, having said all that, I guess I will at least point out a couple of quick things. First of all, if you pick up your copy of the Satanic Bible and read the definition of magic explicitly given in the book, you'll see that there really is nothing in the definition requiring beliefs in gods or the supernatural. Also, if you have Anton LaVey's 4th book, The Devil's Notebook, I would say read the essays, The Combination Lock Principle, and especially the essay after that, Ravings from Tartarus, because he explains a lot of this in his own words, too. Speaking of satanic magic, likewise, I remember seeing a comment somewhere. I forgot who asked this. I'm sorry. But somebody had asked me, I think on Facebook, if I could do an episode on the Satanic Witch. and explain the LeVay synthesizer clock. That is certainly a topic I would love to do an episode on. I talked about it years ago on a show called Dark Voices, which is long gone, no longer around, used to be on Radio Free Satan. Maybe I can dig up that old interview and air it in an episode of Satansplain with the permission of the show's host. We'll see. Also, a comment that showed up on the Church of Satan group that we have on Facebook. If you're looking for a good Satanism discussion group where the admins are on top of things, you know, none of the spammers or devil worshippers or Illuminati seekers, the Jesus freaks, I would say go to the unofficial Church of Satan group on Facebook so you can avoid all of that. The Church of Satan group on Facebook that has over 15,000 members. Anyway, Jason says that he listened to Satansplain episode number 4 on Audible and enjoyed it. He says he has a coworker that is the Christian's Christian. He doesn't push his religion at work, but everybody knows he's a hardcore Christian. And Jason says that this Christian coworker of his recently gave him a copy of the book Atlas Shrugged and said it was an amazing read and check it out. And Jason said this led him to checking out Satansplain's episode on Satanism versus Objectivism. And he was wondering why on earth a Christian would recommend that book. A book that so many Satanists, including myself, really loved. And I would say it was satanic, you know, I found something satanic in it. Even though I did spend a whole episode explaining there are tons of things in Rand's philosophy and LeVay's philosophy that are certainly hugely different. But Jason, that is a good question, and I replied to Jason saying, Atlas Shrugged is secular enough where I can see why some Christians might enjoy the story too. You don't have to be an atheist to enjoy the story, I think. I mean, there isn't anything in there explicitly condemning Christianity or promoting another religion, at least none I can remember. But yeah, I don't know why some ultra-Christian would be particularly fond of the novel Atlas Shrugged. One thing I have noticed, though, is that a lot of Christians seem to think of economics and religion as essentially only having two choices. Either you're a Christian and a capitalist, or you're an atheist and a communist. In fact, I've seen some atheists, too, who fall for this false dichotomy, and they think that if they hate Christianity and see Christians condemning Marxism and communism, then therefore there must be some atheistic appeal in those ideologies. And of course, people like Ayn Rand blow that whole notion out of the water. Of course, you can be a capitalist and an atheist, just as you could be a Christian and a socialist. Your philosophical views on the existence of supernatural deities shouldn't have to do anything with your views on economics and law. But again, some people tie those things together and think they're inseparable, so maybe that is the coworker's reasoning. I don't know. And finally, speaking of that episode on Satanism versus Objectivism, I have this comment that was just so incredibly moronic that I just have to read it. I mean, it's entertainingly moronic. I've gotten some hate mail too, but I just like this response. Those of you who heard that episode that I did on Satanism versus Objectivism will know that I talked a little bit about politics, just as I did as the start of this episode, and how the Church of Satan has no official political stance. That's because Satanism is a religion about the individual, and individual Satanists have all sorts of living situations, so politics that may selfishly benefit me may not be in the best interest of some other Satanist. So I'm going to vote for what I think is in my best interest, while other Church of Satan members may vote for things that they feel in their best interest, whether it's left, right, center, diagonal, up, down, charmed, strange, whatever. Anyway, I read the whole essay about that at the beginning of this episode. Now, the tweet I made on the Satansplain Twitter account, where I gave the link to that episode number 4, I get this reply on Twitter. The troll says, quote, "Well, Satanism definitely can be defined as a leftist political ideology nowadays, because if you don't agree, you are silenced and shunned." Well, here was my reply. I am a magister in the Church of Satan who is openly non-leftist on a number of issues, and the organization has not silenced and shunned me. And I can prove that. You know how I can prove that? Because you're replying to a tweet with a recording of me where I say I am a capitalist and an Ayn Rand fan. These idiots never cease to amaze me. I even made a Dr. Shits meme about this, because you have idiots like this guy who see things like the gay pride flag sigil that satanme.com sells, and they say, oh, the Church of Satan is left-wing. And then at the same time, in the same day, you can find other idiots who see that might is right in books like that are being sold on underworldamusements.com, and they say, the Church of Satan is right-wing fascist. Well, which is it? Are the idiots from group number 1 correct? Or are the idiots from group number 2 correct? They can't both be correct, but they can both be wrong. And they are, as evidenced by the fact that we have members spanning both the left and the right and in between. And now we've come full circle with Satanism and politics, and I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time on Satansplain. Hail Satan. You have been listening to Satansplain. If you have enjoyed this episode, please give it a like and subscribe where available. For more information on the show, visit Satansplain.com. And to learn more about Satanism itself, visit churchofsatan.com. This episode, copyright 2022, Magister Bill M.